going on, guys? TG or ThunderGod here. Today, gotta say thank you for the support. You humble me with it. And today, only due to popular demand, I'm gonna be doing a part 2 to choosing the perfect Gokage to beat Madara. I will be choosing the perfect Gokage to beat Obito this time around. With that being said, make sure to check out the original video. It's a banger, and I'll go off the pretense that you did watch this video to make everything I say a little bit snappier. Rules for the last video apply as well. I'll throw those up on screen along with the big rule, no Hashirama. This video also has a twist with the Kage in question being in the same situation as Naruto and Ko, with their primary objective being to take down the Ten Tails while dealing with Obito's offensive onslaught. And when I say Ten Tails, I mean the Ghetto Mazo who's like transforming or morphing into the Ten Tails. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. With that being said, let's get into the video. So I'll be talking about White Mask Obito first for just a second so we can all be on the same page. And quite frankly, this version of Obito is just slanging, like he's carrying the third Manda down there. Obito is essentially the equivalent to Madara in this case, being a force of nature for the shinobi world to face, along with his attack size, strength, and speed being on the same level of Madara's attack. So there's a very big implication there for them being relative, even if you think like Madara is stronger. You can even make a strong case that he actually had a harder fight than Madara, being able to dominate a KCM2 Naruto, Killer Bee, Might Guy, and Kakashi. This isn't just a fight either. He had to actively protect the Ghetto Mazo and repel the group from it until it evolved into the Ten Tails. A ridiculously impressive showing. Along with the fact that they had the actual counter to his strongest jutsu. So it was just, he was dealing with a lot and he still was able to come out on top, really. Obito displays a lot of physical dexterity with his ability to tank physical blows and techniques such as the Rasengan from KCM Naruto to his arm with no significant damage being taken, with him regenerating any vestiges of damage soon after, with him eating a Rasengan to the face from KCM2 Naruto as well. There's also the elephant in the room with Kamui, along with a plethora of Obito's other jutsu, but we'll save that for the rest of the video. I want to get into the Kage now. For my Tsuchikage slot, I have the second Tsuchikage, Lord Mu. The reason I have Mu over Onoki is, while not only is he slightly stronger than Onoki, as they were shown blatantly equal as an Edo Tensei, his sensory abilities are far more useful in this confrontation than against Madara, in my opinion. As for my team build, I'm going for an offensive sensory team. Mu would thrive in this regard, being able to react to attacks in his blind spot even while Mu is in the midst of charging his particle style. This is also shown with him dodging attacks the Edo Kage could not due to his sensory abilities, but moving even further than that, Mu can just blatantly erase his presence completely through the use of water release. Mu's camouflaging ability was so great he was awarded the nickname Null Man, a title which he gained from having neither a physical form nor detectable chakra while the technique was active. This would be crucial in this matchup for sneaking around Obito in the battlefield, and better yet, making it over to the Ghetto statue. Mu being able to fly makes this even easier for him, especially if Obito decides to erect his Uchiha flame formation barrier in the fight. More on this point a little bit later. Although Onoki's weighted boulder techniques are quite potent, they wouldn't be as useful as even a lightened Raikage wouldn't be able to tag Obito at this point in the series, and serves to actually lose the group a fighter, as Onoki would have to remain on the back of said fighter. It's also nigh impossible for Onoki to touch Obito in this fight, so the idea that he would raise Obito's weight in this fight is a bit out there due to the nature of Obito's abilities and who he really compares to at this point in the series. Compares to Mu, who will not only be difficult for Obito to pinpoint and deal with, but will be instrumental in pinpointing when Obito comes out of the Kamui dimension, as Mu was even able to discern the similarity between chakra signatures among relatives and distinguish chakra from different populations of shinobi. Quite impressive sensory feats that, coupled with his particle style that would be slightly superior to Onoki's, would be far more useful in this fight. There's also the question of fission, but this point doesn't make too much of a difference since Mu can't use particle style after he separates, but may be able to continue relaying information as he can still cloak himself and fly around. Mu is going to be one of the big players in this fight, forcing Obito to phase, which is large scale particle style, similar to how Naruto was forcing Obito to phase with his large scale Bijou bombs. His sensory will make it difficult for Obito to just grab him in this fight as well, so it's very unlikely he'd be taken out first in the group. Mu's the clear choice in this fight for my Tsuchikage slot. For my Mizukage slot, I'll be using Gengetsu. This was a really simple decision, as Mei is honestly garbage, realistically speaking. And Yagura, despite being a perfect Jinchuriki with a diverse arsenal of techniques, was able to be manipulated by Obito via Genjutsu for a prolonged period of time, despite having a Bijou partner with the ability to knock him out of Genjutsu. Obito displaying some of the best Genjutsu feats in the series, controlling the Nine Tails with his base Sharingan alone. Even if said Obito wouldn't be able to do that in this fight, he has a lot of hard counters to Yagura, whether that be his Biju suppressing rods or his wood style that can hold down someone of KCM2 Naruto's strength, who is far beyond Yagura at this point. So in reality, he just suppress and control Yagura, who he might turn on the group if the following occurs. Gengetsu, on the other hand, does offer some different type of support to the group. For starters, Gengetsu's giant clam would be useful for a one-time use, in my opinion, similar to how Obito brushed off a Byakugan pinpointed mind control attempt from Ino and Hinata on multiple occasions. I believe the clam would reward the team 1 to 2 surprise combos until Obito realized the Genjutsu Mirage is afoot. The reason I say this is that even after the Mirage is hit, they're still present and don't move anywhere or disappear, so he would definitely know something is up, in which case he can destroy the giant clam with his giant rods that he stores in his Kamui dimensions, being able to pierce and suppress the A-Tails, who even warns Naruto not to take the rods lightly. The A-Tails hide being able to withstand the force of its own Biju bomb, so it's not an insignificant feat at all. If Gaara with no ocular powers is able to detect the clam using sand particles, but there'd be no reason to say Obito wouldn't, especially when considering the ridiculous perception feats of the Sharingan in the series, whether that be checking chakra quantities or even deducing originals from clones, something even the Byakugan couldn't do very well. He should honestly just see a bubble of chakra being where the clam actually is. Gengetsu's other main attribute are his steam imps that are fast enough to evade and dodge Gaara's sand on multiple occasions with its physical speed, with Gaara being able to block the explosions themselves. It's a bit hard to quantify how fast the imps are, however, I would venture to say they'd have to be on par with particle style in speed, as Mu considered Gengetsu a worthy rival on his databook entry, so at the very least their abilities due to how they killed each other would have to be on par on some level. Maybe you could say they traded blows, with Mu hitting Gengetsu with Jinton while Gengetsu's steam imp dashed in and exploded. We don't know how the interaction went at all, but at the very least these techniques would have to be threatening to Mu, and they'd have to be relative to Mu's actual speed to be any type of threat to him. Now, to say Obito would really be affected from this in any way is a stretch, to be sure, as he's just shown overwhelming far stronger characters. Even Naruto, who's had time to master the Nine Tails chakra and bonded with Kurama, notes how Obito is just too strong. The same Naruto in a weaker version made a clone that is weaker than the original that outsped Mu's particle style and almost one-shot him if not for fission. The other issues with the steam imps is that Gengetsu himself is weakened heavily to the point Gaara can blatantly blitz and overwhelm him with his sand. The problem with the steam imps as well is that we have no idea how durable they are, as they're oil clones filled with water that heat up and expand. At his best, you could say Gengetsu would be a little stronger than Onoki, as Onoki was matching Lord Mu blow for blow in their fight and blatantly stonewalling him, with Gengetsu killing Mu and Mu killing him. Again, incredibly vague encounter. I believe Gengetsu's clam would actually be more useful than the steam imps in this encounter with Obito, and the clam would be the perfect way to kind of fish out some information. Do I think the clam would make the difference in KO Obito? No, but I think it would throw him off momentarily for sure. Now, for my Raikage slot, I'm going to be keeping the 4th Raikage. In the last video, a lot of people went with the 3rd since he has his Hell Stab technique where he pulls lightning into his fingertips, being directly compared to Raikage and Shidori. The 3rd one-shotting himself with this same technique, which follows a trend I see a lot in Naruto, that being characters can, not always do, but can have moves stronger than what they themselves can tank, which is kind of gets into the whole like AP equals durability thing that a lot of people talk about, but essentially the 3rd is the prime example of this. Now, this slot actually makes zero difference in this matchup, realistically speaking. Obito already demonstrated in the 5 Kage Summit his Kamui works in the face of Raikage level speed, with the rest of his feats showing far beyond this. Obito would also be able to breach both Raikage's lightning cloaks, made to take on and duel with the 8-Tails with many of his ranged attacks, examples being again the rods that the full 8-Tails couldn't react to and got pierced by, implied to be on the same threat level as Madara's Yusaka Magatana beads, in the sense that Naruto needed to use the 9-Tails chakra to deflect them. On top of this, the Raikage would not be able to breach the Uchiha Flame Formation barrier, as it not only damaged the 8-Tails hide, but also took the complete brunt of the 8-Tails punch. Aside from being a durable technique noted to use a small amount of chakra to conjure, Obito also erects the barrier from across the battlefield faster than the 8-Tails right in front of the Gedomazo can punch it. So if Obito needed and he sees like the Raikage fighter coming in, he can stop that assault on the Gedomazo along with any other fighter that attempts to attack it. To the point that even Might Guy, who had access to the 7th gate and has seen KCM Naruto in his avatar and fought alongside Raikage Kakashi, is like, yeah, we got no choice but to attack Obito that right now. Like, this barrier is too swole for us. So the barrier actually is pretty potent. The 3rd Hell Stab also means nothing in this situation, as Obito's not getting hit by it, nor is it making a dent in the barrier Obito can erect. Same thing for the fourth, and Obito can just literally grab them and Kamui them. So even if you didn't think like the rods could pierce him, Obito can really just BFR them or remove them from the battlefield with Kamui, which is a GG in this case. This slot is really just support to keep pressing Obito into phasing. You could start being grimy and saying stuff like Obito reflecting the third's hell stab with his gun by right back into his shoulder, similar to what Naruto did. He might even do it by accident. So this choice really makes no difference in how anything in this fight plays out, and it doesn't really make a difference in terms of like which Raikage fighter I choose, since they're both going to have the same function, and they're both not going to be assisted by Onoki this time around. Neither's going to hit Obito, and they do the same thing. They're not going to be able to break the barrier, so it really makes no difference which one you choose. So go with what you want. Doesn't really make a difference. Now for my Kazekage slot, I'll be taking the third Kazekage, being directly compared off Raza, who Gaara was shown superior to, with the third Kazekage being somewhere in the mix. The third's offensive abilities are unparalleled within the Kazekage lineup, which will be paramount in making sure Obito can't materialize and remove any of the Kage from play with Kamui. The third has phenomenal AoE attacks such as his Iron Sand World Order or his microscopic sand particles used in his Iron Sand Shower. These particles being able to sped up with the repellent properties of magnetism. These would obviously be visible to Obito, as even Sasuke displayed the ability to see on a cellular level, so sand grains are definitely within his perception abilities. The third is simply acting as an enforcer to keep Obito phasing with his large-scale techniques. The third's Iron Sand blocks realistically wouldn't be as useful, as we're more so looking at his ability to cover long range and force Kamui from Obito. There's actually not too much more to say on this bit. The third's role is pretty clear. His strength, while not even close to White Mask Obito's level, is established enough so we could see where he'd be on the totem pole. This is obviously sacrificing a lot of defensive properties in the form of Gaara, who may be able to block jutsu like Obito's Fire Style, Bomb Blast Dance, and other. However, Obito can phase through any sand covering attack, so a giant sand mausoleum or sand coffin is a waste of chakra in this fight, along with the fact that Obito's conventional style of fighting isn't gonna require Gaara to like make these sand blocks for other people. Like if he goes to block somebody from Obito, Obito's just gonna go through the sand, obviously speaking. Compare this to Madara, who is using Susanoo swings that Gaara could actually block and save other fighters. The Kazekage slot is also, just a bit simpler to talk about like the Raikage slot. The other two Kazekage have these large scale attacks and defenses that offer no real benefits in either spectrum against Obito, whereas the third, having potentially the fastest attacks, also has the most concentrated, unorthodox, and overall offensive way to pressure Obito in the fight. My Hokage slot. For my Hokage slot, I have Tobirama. Now, Tobirama fans, I know, punch in air, I'm with you. I had to bring it back. I know y'all were a little mad at me about the Taka video. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be better. But here's the thing. Tobirama is kind of an animal, to be honest, but for this video, it might not be the reasons you might say. Tobirama fits the build of this squad perfectly, as he has sensory abilities superior to that of Hashirama, as Hashirama relies on him and defers to him when it's required. An example of this being when he asked Tobirama if he sensed anybody outside their little meeting where he thought Madara was outside. The same Hashirama that, even while fatigued to the point of almost being on his deathbed, could sense Black Zetsu's presence. The same Black Zetsu whose #1 ability is remaining hidden from the shinobi world and remaining in the shadows, was just blatantly detected by Hashirama. For a little more perspective, Zetsu was present during the Itachi and Sasuke fight, with neither making note of him being there during the altercation. You can maybe say they weren't focused on him, which is very fair. I just think it's interesting to note that he is present in a lot of these battles, and these individuals who are able to see chakra with their visual prowess or maybe sense it still aren't able to notice him, and Hashirama does so, with Tobirama being a superior. Tobirama would be able to pinpoint whenever Obito would shift in from his Kamui dimension, just like Lord Mu. I actually think it would be superior to Lord Mu. Now, it's unlikely he'd be able to tag Obito, especially since Kamui activates even unconsciously for Obito, to a point that even characters vastly superior such as Six Pot's Madara aren't able to just overwhelm it by moving faster from the Kamui phasing. It just doesn't happen in the series really. However, Tobirama can teleport members such as Mu into or above the flame formation barrier housing the Geto statue if he gets a mark inside, or at the very least much closer. Tobirama also might be able to outright destroy the Uchiha flame formation barrier with his tandem paper bombs, depending how strong you believe the technique to be, along with the fact that if he gets an opportunity to summon Edo Tensei to aid him during battle, he could also use this to potentially force Obito to phase out. Maybe you could say that he does this with the clone as well, which not really implied in the series. I may grant you for the sake of the discussion. There's also a case to be made that Tobirama can deduce Obito's abilities similar to Minato. The series does make a note to talk about Tobirama's wealth of intellect that not too many people talk about. But even more so, he might be able to deduce a decent bit of Obito's own ability from his own use of space-time ninjutsu. This is also somewhat predicated on how the fight proceeds, but Tobirama should be able to teleport out of Kamui if he is grabbed, so it's more so a question of how long the other Kage stay in commission before Obito blatantly takes them out. Tobirama was able to save Shinobi from the God Tree by teleporting them out of danger. Hardly the same degree of threat, but something just to make note of. I do believe Tobirama would be able to come to the same conclusion as Minato, that Obito materializes when he wants to touch somebody in the real world, and that's the time where you actually have to strike him. I think it'd be disingenuous to Tobirama and his intellect in the series to say he wouldn't be able to at least deduce that much, especially when Minato has like the concern over the Nine Tails and his wife just giving birth, whereas Tobirama has a lot more of a focused encounter with a little more wiggle room and time to analyze the fight. Tobirama, while lacking in the overwhelming power of someone like Sage Mode Hashirama's Wood Golem or KCM2 Minato's like Odama Bijou Bomb, in that he has concentrated attacks that he'll need to throw out at Obito the moment he materializes, even being able to place paper bombs on a stronger version of Obito, Jubito, after getting his whole body ran through. It's more so a question if the group can force Obito to materialize, which is obvious, but it's the problem at hand. Tobirama's Suiton would also be useful in counteracting Obito's fire style. I'll go on record and say I don't believe Tobirama's Suiton is as potent as Obito's fire style, on par with Madara's and the Jubi's attack, as we have no real showings other than Tobirama cutting the God Trees down, which aren't that impressive of a feat. You can maybe say that doesn't mean they're weaker, we just don't know how strong they are, but at that point we'd be arguing from a place of hypotheticals, which I guess is what this video is. But come on, man. Maybe if it's coupled with Gengetsu's water style, it could potentially overcome it, but I digress. You know, we're getting a little bit off topic. There also is the problem that if the group even tags Obito, he might be able to just tank lower level attacks, just like Naruto's Rasengan, and regenerate from it over a period of time. So even in their best conditions, the group isn't guaranteed any victory here. Tobirama's Bringer of Darkness Genjutsu might also be useful in scenario. A lot of people actually bring up the fact that Tobirama uses this technique in the anime, which despite the data book not actually listing Tobirama as a user when he used the technique, and him not using it in the manga with Hashirama being the one to use it, kind of gets into a little bit of a controversy. And this gets even weirder when looking at the fact that Hashirama is specifically noted to be a user of 5 elements in Yang release, whereas Tobirama has access to both Yin and Yang release, with the Genjutsu being a darkness style technique like Shadow Possession, which is a Yin release. The jutsu itself may not involve Yin release at all if other Genjutsu like Gengetsus are reflecting light into the eye to create illusions. Regardless, I just want to address this point real quick, that depending on your perception of what's canon and what's not determines if you think Tobirama can actually use this technique. I'll allow it in the video for the sake of discussion, which lends itself into how I think the team will actually pull off a quote-unquote win. The group has a lot of short-term genjutsu and illusionary techniques that they can use to momentarily distract Obito, which is going to be what either Tobirama or Moon need to hit Obito or the Gedomazo, the latter being far more likely, especially since someone like Hiruzen can defend himself even being while blinded by the Bringer of Darkness. But Bringer of Darkness, while stacked with Gengetsu's Clan Mirage, could be a major issue. Again, the problem is Obito could just continuously phase, so when all these techniques are stacked together, it's just Obito really doesn't have to deal with them, and at his worst, he can really just retreat into the Kamui dimension and just go over to the Gedo statue if he needs to. There's also a question of the Gedomazo's durability and if the group could even damage it. The Gedomazo showing eating a punch from Choji in his butterfly mode, but at the same time, KCM Naruto charged at the statue with the Rasengan and it warranted Obito to reflect any jutsu with his Gunbai. You could also assert that the state of the statue made it so that it really couldn't tank any attacks as it was forming into the Ten Tails. That or this Naruto's Rasengan would be stronger than Choji's butterfly punch, which might be consistent considering Kakashi's convinced that if Yamato wasn't suppressing the Nine Tails chakra, would have been over 100 times more chakra than Kakashi. Compare this to the butterfly mode said to be 100 times multiplier in part 1. Could Naruto's attack be stronger, or the statue is just weaker, or both could be present? Doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, just an interesting point. Both Buu and Tobirama should be able to damage the statue. Tobirama's Suiton even causing Madara to throw up his Susanoo defense to block it while he has a Rinnegan out. That or Lord Mu's particle style would do the trick, with these two being the primary win conditions for the group. It's also not as if Obito can't multitask in defending the statue and combating the group, as he's shown dealing with Kakashi's attempts to convoy the statue while having Naruto's mini Bijou Bomb flung at him. There's also a question of if Obito could potentially reflect the particle style with his Gunbai into Wind Release. That might be possible considering Madara used it to reflect the mini tail Beast Bomb by KCM2 Naruto. Storm Generation does also displace Madara flinging back platoons of Shinobi with it as well, so this isn't isn't exclusively to Mu, he'll be flinging back a lot of attacks from the group as a whole. Obito's physical might is also something not too many people talk about. I mentioned his physical dexterity, but his raw strength when coupled with Kamui is absolutely just broken. He's flinging his gun by at a stronger KCM Naruto than the one that fought the third. And Naruto's like, he's too strong, and he's like wincing from it as Obito like phases straight to him. Naruto in a weaker state shown taking physical blows from the fourth Raikage a lot more confidently. Yet the force from Obito not consistently pushing on the gunbai but swinging it while he phases through an attempt to capture Naruto was able to immobilize him in midair. This is not an inconsistency for Obito either, since he can block Suigetsu's sword swings with Zabuza's blade with one hand. Suigetsu is also capable of sparring with Kisame for short periods of time and shatter B's blade. You could honestly make a case that Obito is going to be phasing, surfing on his gunbai, and just eliminating fighters just from the raw swings alone. Couple that with him attempting to Kamui them in the other dimension. So it's actually pretty crazy what Obito is dealing with at this point. It's going to be a ridiculously tough fight for the group, as the original team, along with being overall much more of a powerful unit, was working off Kakashi's jutsu being linked to Obito's, and even when this was made apparent, they weren't able to instantly overwhelm or defeat him. So in this squad's case, it's going to be far more difficult for the group. This is just the best group I can see taking on the challenge. They're going to be sensing when Obito comes out and assaulting him with a barrage of ninjutsu. I don't think they're going to be forcing him to phase for 5 minutes straight. That just doesn't seem likely. They don't have the overwhelming numbers or the strength in the group. So in short, the group's path to victory is going to be achieved in defeating the Ghetto Mazo via particle style or tandem paper bombs. If they can get to the statue by being able to stall Obito long enough where the other fighters come in, which the group unfortunately can't do without Tobirama present. He's more so the anchor, along with Mu minorly so being an anchor. That, or you'd have to argue the group plus Tobirama can tag Obito when he materializes. Otherwise, Obito is just going to pick the Kage off one by one until the remaining few get overwhelmed. And throughout this whole video, did I not once discuss the use of Obito and his Rinnegan abilities that he can use and that we know he can use? Meaning, there's another layer of discussion and to what Obito can do in this fight on top of what's already been established. So, like, he can actually just absorb a particle style if it really comes down to it, if he teleports into the Ghetto statue. So, it's just, it gets into another layer of how Obito is just an absolute beast of nature. And the problem with this group is that the members have varying levels of strength, making it so Obito might actually one-shot some of the lower members like Gengetsu, or Mu with his basic physical might, leaving him to deal with other members much earlier in the fight, which is going to be detrimental to them. So that's the video. That's the group I chose to take on Obito, and I think is the best chance. I went for an offensive sensory unit. Let me know what you guys had for your team down below. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. I definitely appreciate the support and the love you guys are showing. Like and subscribe if you like me. Come at me. Bye.